Veazey, North Alabama has fans here. Check out the stadium here at Braley Municipal Stadium.
It's crazy they got more fans than Miami does.
That is actually accurate. That's actually accurate. So
have you seen
North Alabama?
A sold-out stadium? Miami would never.
Have you seen Miami's new promotion? Buy one, get two free this weekend? It's incredible.
that's better than fucking Dollar Tree.
That's not even a joke. They're actually doing that.
Damn. Double BOGO. BOGO on BOGO.
I think it's just for Coral Gable residents, but still.
Hey guys, it's Terrence Nan. You're listening to Hear the Spear, presented by No Game Day. Go Noles.
Hey, what's up? This is Peter Ward, a.k.a. P-Dub, in the house. So we're listening to Hear the Spear, presented by No Game Day. Go Live, go Noles.
Hi, this is Charlie Ward, and you're listening to Hear the Spear, go Noles.
This is Terrell Buckley. You're listening to Hear the Spear, presented by No Game Day. No Bloody.
But perhaps better known as the greatest corner to ever step on a football field, Deion Primetime Sanders.
Great Deion Sanders, my brother. What's going on, man? I could wake up to that greeting every day, man. That was awesome.
Hello, Noles fans. This is former Seminole Derek Brooks, and you're listening to Hear the Spear, presented to you by No Game Day.
James Wilder Jr. What's going on, James?
Thanks for having me on. SSOD, Florida State or Die, and go Noles.
William Bar None Floyd.
Gentlemen, what's up?
What's happening, guys? This is Logan Robinson from Hear the Spear, presented to you by NoleGameDay.com. We are here on a live, wonderful, fantastic Wednesday evening at 6 o'clock, a little bit earlier than usual. This is North Alabama week, though. We are over the Miami week, so it's things are a little bit more relaxed, nothing too crazy going on. This is kind of like a little mini baby bye for Florida State, even though Mike Norvell would not agree with that one bit whatsoever after hearing his press conference on Monday. But we're still here. We still got a game to preview this evening with Florida State facing North Alabama to finish off their home season stretch for the 2023 season. We're going to talk some seniors there and give our appreciation to a few of those guys later in the show. We're going to talk last thoughts on Florida State versus Miami. We're also going to jump into some college football playoff rankings and maybe some potential matchups, which we'll see if Florida State's able to get it done in Charlotte and the ACC Championship. Florida State lands a talented 4-star defensive back. We've got our kickoff time of Florida State versus UF. We'll be discussing that as it will be a night kickoff. We're also going to talk some college football craziness. Firings are happening right now, and it so happens to be a former FSU head coach that was in on that and no longer in College Station. So we'll give our thoughts on that. And then we got some basketball. And during the production meeting before we went live, Veazey said he's practically full and sold after just a couple of games on Little Hamilton and Florida State. To hear his takes on that. But with me this evening is Dustin Lewis, our editor-in-chief at NoleGameDay.com at the top. And then down below is our lead basketball writer at NG and also our official game preview guide for the 2023 football season. Gentlemen, how are we doing?
We're doing great. Still enjoying that third straight victory over Miami. And like you said, a little bit of an easier opponent on the schedule maybe for Florida State this weekend, but still a lot of things we want to see from the Seminoles going into senior day. Obviously, some guys are going to play their final game at Doak Campbell Stadium. And, you know, if Florida State does what they should do on Saturday, it should be a good opportunity to get some younger guys in the game and hopefully see, from top to bottom, the talent on this roster against North Alabama.
I'm excited, man. Basketball's back. I'm fully bought in. Like Logan kind of hinted at, I'm drinking all the Garnet Kool-Aid currently. And Friday's, to me, the biggest game of the season. Early matchup against Florida. It's a great test for how good a team is or isn't early on in the season. And I'm really, really looking forward to Friday night.
As always, you can listen to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify. If you're on YouTube right now, hit the like button. Jump into the comments if you have any questions or topics. This is the week to jump in and ask them, as it's a little bit more of a slower week. So jump in there. Make sure you subscribe, though, because we're releasing all kinds of videos of player interviews. Also, we've got Mike Norvell stuff going out on our YouTube as well. So make sure you're subscribed over there. I think we're nearing 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, which would be like a 5,000 subscriber climb just this season alone, which is absolutely nuts. So appreciate everybody coming out and hanging out with us and also tuning into our instant reactions, which we do right after games, which we'll be doing this upcoming Saturday as well. Not going to miss those ever. So let's jump into it, gentlemen. We're just going to give our last thoughts. Luckily, we got to all jump on at the same time for our instant reaction for Florida State versus Miami. Florida State winning 27-20. Were you guys kind of shocked by the score? I know just leaving the stadium, a lot of FSU fans not too happy that Florida State didn't cover, didn't put the Hurricanes away maybe earlier than they had thought. You know, you have that fluke play there, something that the College Football Playoff Committee actually addressed, that, you know, they still like Florida State at that 4 spot over Washington. But overall, last thoughts on Florida State beating the Hurricanes 3-0. Shout out to Jordan Travis.
I really thought, going back and looking at it, the score was probably closer than the game was. You know, like you said, that fluke play, I mean, Miami had 155 yards of offense in the second half. 85 of them came on that play. Without that, they average about 2.2 yards of play in the second half. So really those final 2 quarters, in my opinion, were a defensive masterclass by Florida State. You only saw Miami cross the 50-yard line twice. One of those was the 85-yard play. The other one was the onside kick at the very beginning of the second half. So Florida State's defense really stepped up there and stopped the Hurricanes on the ground after they had some success there in the first 2 quarters. And then on offense, you know, I thought if Florida State's able to convert on that drive where Ja'Kai Douglas had the long catch and they're down there in the red zone, if they're able to score on that drive, I mean, this one looks a lot more out of reach. And the onside kick as well. You know, Miami pretty much got gifted a scoring possession there. Florida State able to hold them to a field goal. But you're a couple plays from this one going to maybe a 21-point victory for Florida State.
And I don't think we talked about the onside kick and the instant reaction. I actually kind of liked the call. It was a perfect kick by Fitzgerald. Florida State just didn't make the play when it was there. At least the defense did a decent job of holding them to 3. And then if Conrad Hussey's in the game instead of Kevin Knowles, in the end, Miami doesn't get that last touchdown. Knowles just took a horrible angle. I agree. The score didn't really indicate what this game was. A couple fluky plays, and this is a much different ball game. And I'm glad the College Football Playoff Committee saw that, didn't change anything at the top of the rankings.
Yeah, Kevin Knowles has kind of had that up and down season overall, and then when you have a youngster like Conrad Hussey, hey now, hey,
where's the up?
We're being nice.
Up that.
Being nice here. Being nice here. You can be mean, you be bad cop, I'll be good cop.
That's fine.
That way it can work. But yeah, Conrad Hussey, strong future. His career at Florida State is going to be really nice. He's just showing the signs, and Mike Norvell talking about him during the press conference. Just a player that whenever he gets the opportunities to go out there, he learns from his mistakes. There's been a few flags that he's been dealt with, and he learns from it. And, you know, that's something that overall these true freshmen coming in, getting playing time, I think it just goes to show what Florida State's able to do in-house, developing their own talent, something that Florida State, Mike Norvell has wanted to do for a while now. And, you know, you bring in, implement some of these transfers too that come in and start right away, but youngsters that come in and you're able to develop just under just a couple months, man, and he's able to make that impact. Talking about Hussey, it's really nice to see. I'd still think, you know, for Kalen DeLoach, just looking back at some of the film as well, he's someone that stood out during the game and watching afterward. Kalen, I want to see Kalen more and some blitz packages, and I think he is just better. Him and Akeem Dent, I really like blitz packages. I think, you know, Florida State has utilized Kevin Knowles a few times in that, but he's missed getting home at the quarterback. Let's learn from that, and let's put Akeem Dent and let's put Kalen DeLoach there, and I think you see a lot more, get better results out of those two guys and blitzing. But Kalen DeLoach, phenomenal game. He deserves a ton of credit.
He was excellent, and, you know, really that entire linebacker core, I think we complimented them on the post-game reaction. But, I mean, Tatum Bethune was up there in tackles. Kalen DeLoach obviously led the team, 10 tackles and 2 sacks. And then DJ Lundy had, I think, 7 tackles in 28 snaps. So, I mean, for the most part, they were flying around, getting after it. And like I said, Florida State's defense really stepped up there in the second half and figured out how to limit that Miami rushing attack, and that was really the key to the game.
DeLoach is going to have a chance at ACC Defensive Player of the Year. He's I think he's 5th in the league in sacks, and He's tied for 7th in tackles for loss. He's been outstanding really all year, and he's made the big plays when we needed. He's really living up to my preseason prediction of saying he'd be the defensive MVP for this team. And
our preseason prediction.
I'm sorry. But he's just been phenomenal. There's nothing you can short him about that.
No, not at all. And that's what you need. You need guys that veterans, someone that's been with the program for a while, and have him step up. And the way that he's playing right now has been phenomenal. It's been really fun to watch him progress as a player throughout his collegiate career. But yeah, and then too, looking at Trey Benson, the way that he was running, it felt that was just that feeling you had from last year with Benson. Whenever he found his groove in that middle part of the season in 2022. He, to me, ran in that style like he did last year. And if he continues at that kind of pace, physicality, not giving up on the play, finding that end zone, it's really, really hard to stop him when also you utilize him in a different way where he can use his speed too at that size. Trey Benson is a different animal once he gets going. And in this game, maybe it's just something with Florida State running backs against Miami, but they just turn a different gear. And I think that's something impressive to see. And Florida State fans, along with Jordan Travis, kind of finding his groove here at the latter half of the season, matching that with Trey Benson's running style is a really good combination for this offense, which is going to need to put up some points here soon. And if you're getting into some kind of battle for college football playoffs, all that kind of stuff, putting points up on the board is what Trey Benson is going to be utilized for moving forward.
It was different for sure. Coming into the season, we talked about what he did last year, setting the record for the PFF missed tackles per rushing attempt or whatever it was. And he just didn't have that early in the season. He wasn't running with that same style. I think you saw it for sure on Saturday against Miami, just physically coming downhill, no matter who's there, trying to run through him. And of course, he took some big hits during that game from some of the Miami defenders, but he just continued to go after it, power through the entire night. I actually saw him out there on Sunday, and we went back out there for some recruiting stuff, and I was surprised. He was walking around fine. I was surprised he wasn't in the ice tub all day with just the physicality that he was running with in that game.
There's always something to be said when you're playing your former coach, though, especially when Cristobal goes from Oregon to Miami, decides not to take Trey Benson with him. That's always going to be in the back of your head the next next few times you go up against him. And he was running angry pretty much all game.
And that's what he did that same thing against Cristobal last year, which was hilarious to see. And I love how they get a shot of Mario Cristobal after Trey Benson scored one of those on last Saturday. So it was great. And Mike Norvell giving a lot of praise to the atmosphere in Doak Campbell Stadium. It was rocking. We're up there at the very top. We're behind glass and everything, but just getting down there for the last 5 minutes in the fourth quarter, it was loud. Our guy Robert, who's been writing for us, goes to Florida State in his first year. He was down there for the Duke game. I wasn't able to be down there, but he said, "Yeah, this one's a different level," and it sure was. And Mike Norvell, the whole, Akeem Dent, talking about it as well. The atmosphere that they bring not only at home but on the road, it really does help this defense overall, but the team and bring some energy. But I don't think Trey Benson really needed some extra juice on that. He wanted to get things done, and he sure did. But anything else for you guys on this before we move on here? We saw Keon Coleman, Johnny Wilson, 82 yards, Keon Coleman 24. Kind of took 2 quarters for Keon to find his groove and also for Jordan Travis to connect with him. But your 2-star wide receivers, along with Ja'Kai Douglas, racking up 69 yards. Great number there. Shout out to Ja'Kai for that. But
nice.
It is nice. It's nice to have a slot receiver here. And, we're still trying to figure out, Dustin Hill health-wise, how close he is to 100% and everything. But it's so nice to have Ja'Kai Douglas come in middle of the season, and he's also finding a lot of chemistry and finding that groove that we've seen him find with Jordan Travis and career past.
He's been huge these last 2 weeks, especially. We're talking about 2 games where Florida State at one point was trailing against Pittsburgh and had to battle back in that game. And then the same thing against Miami. The Seminoles and Hurricanes were really duking it out for the majority of that first half. And then Florida State made some adjustments and was able to find some success there and pull that game out as things went on. But Ja'Kai Douglas, a career game against the Pittsburgh Panthers to spark things without Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson in the lineup. And then once again, making a huge catch against Miami. You go back to that 2021 game, Ja'Kai Douglas had a massive play on that final drive to help Florida State eventually set up that game-winning, 4th and 14 first and foremost to Andrew Parchment, then the game-winning touchdown by Jordan Travis. And then he does the same thing here, has a huge catch that leads to a scoring possession for Florida State. I'm sure they would have liked to turn that one into a touchdown rather than a field goal, but regardless, he strikes again in this rivalry.
Which they even mentioned that his game 2 years ago on the broadcast after that long catch, they said just like he did 2 years ago. And it's good to see him emerge as that slot receiver, something we've noted that Florida State's needed pretty much all season long. Really, my only thoughts is there's been a whole lot of copium being taken by Miami's fan base, talking, we're closing the gap, not just acting like they don't have the more talented team according to 24/7. But I digress.
Well, we'll have to talk about that gap for 365 more days.
And that's what they will do. We know that for sure. The off-season champions, the Miami Hurricanes. So shout out to them. I can't waste any time. I saw a lot of FSU Twitter, some of the FSU beat going at it with Miami fans, but trust me, it's not even worth it. Just enjoy it. Grab a beer. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Enjoy your Monday. Move on to the next week. It's not worth it with Miami fans. At this point, it hasn't been that way for quite a long while, honestly. So we'll see them on Twitter during the offseason. Some of them are going into retirement as we speak. Let's see. That's our last thoughts there on Florida State versus Miami. Let's jump into these college football playoff rankings, which we had kind of a shakeup. Not too much and nothing too big of a shocker here for college football fans as watching. But Georgia at number 1, Ohio State number 2, Michigan number 3, and Florida State at number 4. Washington is right behind FSU at number 5, and Oregon's at 6, Texas 7, 8 is Alabama. What are y'all's thoughts on that top 4 grid as Florida State still holding on to that spot? Like I mentioned earlier, the College Football Playoff Committee believed that Florida State had a dominant win. They did what they did to Miami and more. They thought that was a fluke play, or that was some blown coverage there for Florida State secondary where Miami scored. And they did not feel like Washington should move above the Seminoles at this current time.
I mean, it's kind of like I've said the last few weeks. It doesn't really matter because, Michigan and Ohio State have to play each other next week. And once that happens, there won't be a debate on who's in the top 4 as long as Florida State and Washington keep winning. Eventually, they'll both be in the top 4 if they keep winning. But Washington does have a fairly hard schedule down the stretch. But I think the committee is rewarding Florida State for just being a more complete team. Washington doesn't run the football very well. Their defense isn't the best. Florida State's just been a more complete team, and that's why they've yet to make that change. But again, in 2 weeks, it won't really matter because Ohio State and Michigan have to play at some point.
And Washington's defense has also been a big cause for concern. If they're giving up 42 and 30-plus points every week to these Pac-12 teams, what's going to happen whenever they go against someone in the top 4? And that seems like a big factor for the playoff committee. Last night, after the show wrapped up, College Football Playoff Chair Boo Corrigan spoke to the media and actually was asked about the difference between Florida State and Washington and, stuff like that. And his response was, I think when you look at that is a factor in what's going on, as well as the Arizona State and Stanford close games there with 2 teams that have won a combined 6 games this year. But we're going to continue to look at it and continue to evaluate week over week. You saw today a little bit when you look at the whole 25, it's a clean sheet every week as we come in and we continue to debate it. So, there's a very small gap, I think, between Florida State and Washington when you're talking about the margin in that 4 and 5 spot. And it's going to be important for the Seminoles, not going to get much of a chance this week against North Alabama, but next week in Gainesville, going to need to go out there and decisively defeat Florida, I think. And, Florida State fans, I think you've got to hope Louisville wins this weekend, clinches that ACC championship berth, ranked number 10 in the college football playoff rankings. If they win out and Florida State goes into Charlotte, gets a top 10 win there, pretty much secures their chances to make the playoff, in my opinion.
I mean, again, if they win out, they're in no matter what. And also, Washington's an underdog this weekend playing at Oregon State. Mm-hmm. I don't think Florida State would be an underdog to too many teams, or really any 2-loss teams right now. I think they're favored no matter where they're playing, and I think that has a part to do with it as well.
Yeah, and then looking ahead to at some championships, at least for SEC as well. Florida State has a chance to move up, depending on if Alabama decides to disrupt a few things here, which I think a lot of college football fans are keeping a close eye on that one. Where maybe Alabama has the chance, they go in and take down Georgia. Then where do you put Florida State? They stay there, or I would think you would move up Florida State and then you jump in and give Alabama a chance. It's going to be more interesting. It's really just all up to Florida State and what they want to do. They're going to be facing now, unless something crazy happens with Louisville and Miami, Florida State's going to be facing a top 10 team with the Cardinals and Charlotte, which if they get that win and the ACC championship, that helps a ton on their resume as well.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked about it on Twitter, and I talked about it a little bit in our Discord as well. To me, the dream scenario with Florida State winning out is Alabama beating Georgia in the SEC title, Texas winning out, Washington winning out, and then just whoever you prefer in the Big Ten. To me, I'd rather play Ohio State. And that gives you a top 4 of more than likely Ohio State, Florida State, Washington, and then Texas, because they're going to have to reward Texas over Bama for that head-to-head win. And I think that's a fairly winnable bracket for Florida State. They don't have the rushing attacks that a Michigan or Georgia does, and that's something Florida State struggled with this year.
I think if anything, it'd be big for Florida State to get into that 3rd spot, so I don't have to worry about the 4 and 5 debate.
Mm-hmm.
Again, Ohio State, Michigan have to play. If there's 4 undefeated teams, all 4 of them are going to get in. I'm not really worried about the 4-5 because eventually 2 of them have to play.
But if Ohio State, Michigan's 28-27 or
Someone lost.
31-28, I mean,
someone lost. You already know who's better.
What about if it's overtime, triple overtime, Veazey? Are you thinking about that yet?
Someone lost.
What about if Harbaugh's not on the sideline and Ohio State only wins by a field goal?
It'd be different if he was suspended from the team entirely. He's still there throughout the week. He's still doing all the press conferences, all the practices, all the team activities. The only thing he can't do is be at the game. So the only thing he's not doing is deciding when to call timeouts. That's pretty much it.
Sally's asking here, do we want Miami to beat Louisville?
Nope.
No.
Do not want that to happen.
Louisville's at 10. They should be at 9, considering Missouri has 2 losses, but really Louisville's only win is that win over Notre Dame. If Louisville beats Miami and then they beat Kentucky to end the season, those are 2 decent wins at the very least. Maybe they can move into that 8 or 9 spot.
And it would just be huge for Florida State's resume because the biggest win right now for the Seminoles is probably LSU, and their season hasn't necessarily unfolded how people thought back in August, now sitting with 3 losses. Then you've got the Duke win, which Duke obviously has fallen out of the top 25 since Florida State's victory there. So to get a victory over a top 10 team at the end of the season would be a big boost for FSU's resume.
What do you guys think right here for a fun conversation, though? What do you think is going to be this top 4 college football playoff? We're 2 weeks away from, obviously, rivalry weekend. That'll be next weekend. Then we'll have conference championships. So what do you think? Who's gonna come in here? Like you were saying there, Veazey, Ohio State, Michigan, they face one another. Who's gonna jump in here? Who's it gonna be?
At the end of the year, to me, the most realistic 4 is Georgia, Michigan, Florida State, Oregon. I think Oregon gets the better of Washington in that rematch in the Pac-12 title game. I think that's the most likely for him, in my opinion.
That's what I was going to say as well. I think Oregon sneaks in there, and I honestly think Washington's going to have their work cut out for them this weekend against Oregon State, a really sneakily good football team.
Mm-hmm.
They may have their work cut out. They may have their work cut out for them next week against Washington State too, who hasn't looked the best the last few seasons, but you can't count Cam Ward out in any football game.
Plus, it's the Apple Cup.
The Apple Cup.
Yep. Oh, it's gonna be fun. Like this weekend, it's all right. Like there's definitely some good matchups, but then you get into rivalry weekend, which we're gonna steer into now. Discussing Florida State's gonna be facing the Gators on Saturday of next week at 7:00, gentlemen. Dustin, last time you and I were there, that was a nooner, right?
I think it was 3:30.
One of those two.
I can't remember.
I want to say it was 3:30 because I thought.
Yeah, because I don't think we got up that early.
Thought it was closer to nighttime whenever we started heading back to Tallahassee, but it should be rocking even more now Saturday night in the swamp with the Gators potentially fighting for bowl eligibility.
Is it going to be rocking? Because I feel like most of that fan base wants Napier out of there.
I feel like it'll still get up for FSU Florida State though.
I'm
sorry, FSU UF. FSU Florida State. That's pretty much how I'm expecting the game to go though.
Yeah, I mean, I'm expecting it. If it's at 7 o'clock, it's in the swamp. They're going to show up, except for maybe, it is Thanksgiving weekend. But still, I mean, I'm just trying to think back in 2013 when Florida State was on a run like this. It was a heavy FSU crowd. I'm expecting a lot of FSU's fan base to be there. But still, 7 o'clock kickoff in the swamp, fine for bowl eligibility, and really for Billy Napier's job. You would love to ruin, really just to ruin Florida State's run. That's the main thing that they want to do. And the last time Florida State was there in the swamp, I think we all predicted Florida State to win that game. Didn't happen. Florida State lost to an interim head coach. And so it was extremely disappointing listening to Jermaine Johnson after the game. Mike Norvell kind of been shocked that they lost that one. So never know. It's rivalry weekend. Not saying that I'm predicting Florida State to lose that game, but I am trying to hype this up a little bit. I'm trying to hype it up. It is. It's North Alabama week, man. I'm trying to keep the viewers on here.
Yeah,
ratings up.
We'll talk more about it next week, but I think Jordan Travis is going to have something to prove just the way that game went 2 years ago. Got hurt a little bit through the game, couldn't quite finish the game how he wanted to. I think he's going to come out firing to start that Florida game.
Yeah, you think about that one. I mean, that was just the perfect storm for the Gators. Jordan Travis gets injured on the opening drive, like 3 plays into the game. His shoulder's messed up. Mackenzie Belton comes in, throws a pick. Tate Rodemaker comes in. I can't remember if he threw a pick or not, but it didn't go very well. And then you basically got Jordan Travis with one shoulder out there the remainder of the game. The defense actually picked off Emory Jones 3 times in that one, and Florida State still wasn't able to win. I do remember fourth quarter, Florida State was down 7, about to get the ball back, had a punt, and I believe it was Keyshawn Helton that muffed it, and Florida recovered. It was an ugly game on special teams and on offense. And like you said, Logan, it was very somber after the game because that was one Florida State 5-6 going into it, had a chance to get back to go into the postseason after starting it out 0-4 with obviously the loss to Jacksonville State and that really disappointing stretch at the time. And then that happens in Gainesville. So you've got to thank Florida State, not only the players, but Mike Norvell and his coaching staff. They've got a real chip on this shoulder and want to go into Gainesville and prove a point against the Gators. But they've still got a sour taste in their mouth despite winning last year.
And now Florida's going to be in that same situation more than likely. Just they obviously didn't start the season off the same way that Florida State did in Norvell's second year, but in Napier's second year, they start off 5-2. They've now lost 3 straight. They're playing at Missouri next week, who just absolutely blasted Tennessee. And then they potentially play an undefeated Florida State at 5-6 for bowl eligibility. It's a tough position to be in.
Really tough situation. Colston here from YouTube's asking, if Jaden Daniels wins the Heisman, should that improve FSU's resume? I don't know if it improves FSU's resume. I think they're going to do just fine if they're winning games, but it sure does improve Adam Fuller's resume. I'll give them that. I'll give them that. That's for damn sure. Adam Fuller was in his bag in that game, gentlemen.
He's honestly been in his bag almost all year. Obviously, there's been some first half of games where people are like, what are we doing? In the second half of games, he's been absolutely phenomenal with his adjustments and what he wants his defense to do. There's a reason he's on the semifinalist list for the Broyles Award.
I've just been really impressed with not only Adam Fuller, but also with what the defensive backfield has been able to produce in the first year under Pat Surtain. I mean, man, it's been a complete turnaround from the last couple of years, and there's still been some struggles, some inconsistencies at times, but Florida State, at least according to FSU Sports Info, the only team in the country right now that's allowing less completions than total passing attempts, holding teams under 50% completion percentage on the season. So it's been really impressive, and you're seeing them get back to creating takeaways, interceptions throughout the year. You know, if they can keep this rolling, especially with the talent coming in this Tribe 24 recruiting class, you know, the future is bright for the Seminoles in the defensive backfield.
Yeah, we're about to talk about one too incoming. But yeah, Coach Surtain, just to add to your point there, Dustin, also these youngsters coming in and playing so well. I mean, we talked about Conrad Hussey at the very beginning of this show, and we've talked about him a ton throughout the last couple of weeks. But just for, also Akeem Dent, I think he's playing some of his best ball as well. He's keeping things quiet back there, and he's staying healthy and everything. And Shaheem Brown as well. I love some of the blitzes that they're bringing with him too. But yeah, Coach Surtain in his first year, just imagine too, in his second year with all that talent that's coming in this class. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. So, but yeah, shout out to Adam Fuller. But yeah, that's a good question. I've been thinking about that the last couple of weeks, just, hearing all this stuff about Jaden Daniels. He's one of the top favorites, if not the favorite, to win this Heisman. What's the whole talk about Bo Nix, man? I mean, he's maybe I just don't watch enough of Bo Nix and such, but I mean, he was supposed to win the Heisman his freshman year. Now in his 16th season, he's supposed to win it now. But Jaden Daniels certainly, at least entertainment-wise, is super fun to watch. But I would like it if you're an FSU fan. If someone were to win it and it's not Jordan Travis, give it to Jaden Daniels and say Adam Fuller did what he needed to do, and also Tatum Bethune.
I mean, Nix has been playing out of his mind. He's completing almost 80% of his passes and has 29 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. He's been rolling all year. I think part of it is that he just plays on the West Coast, and a lot of people are asleep by the time he's on the TV. But I agree. To me, Jaden Daniels should be the favorite. Even though LSU hasn't been the best team, it's not been because of Daniels. It's been because of the defense. He's been amazing all year, and he's coming off a game where he had 600 yards of offense by himself. It's just absurd.
Yeah, what, 300 plus passing yards, 200 plus rushing yards against an SEC team?
Yeah,
well, against Florida.
Yeah. 700 yards of offense in total for LSU is ridiculous.
Yeah, no joke. Let's go over to a commitment that Florida State landed. Talking about that secondary with Coach Surtain. Future's looking bright. D-Lou, a nice pickup for the Seminoles. Florida State lands 6'2", 175-pound Jamari Howard from down south. Florida State continues to cook down below. Mario Cristobal's wall, Mike Norvell, and Coach Surtain jumping over that pretty easily, but ranked as a number 7 cornerback and 247 sports rankings overall in the composite, though top 11 in the country. And per 247 sports, to a top 100 recruit. A nice pickup for the Seminoles here. Dulu, what are your thoughts on this pickup for Florida State?
Huge pickup in the defensive backfield. And, we just talked about what the Seminoles are doing on the field and the defensive backfield, and what they're doing on the recruiting trail is just as impressive. And now you add Jamari Howard to a class that already includes talents like KJ Bolden, Charles Lester, Ricky Knight. I mean, some very good high school defensive backs that are going to be the future of FSU at that position. And now Jamari Howard, like you said, a long and rangy cornerback, just what Florida State's looking for in that defensive backfield, top 100 prospect. This is one that I think just relationships were huge here. He was committed to Michigan State for a while. Florida State continued to work there. He ended up backing off that pledge. It seemed like Florida was the favorite. And Florida State, I mean, they just continued to put the time and effort in. Mike Norvell, Pat Surtain, Adam Fuller really working here, and eventually able to pull off the commitment for Howard on Friday, committed to the Seminoles just before that Miami game, then was actually in attendance for the game on Saturday and stuck around on Sunday for a long amount of time. He won't take his official visit until December. So Florida State going to have him back on campus again before he signs. But I mean, this is just a huge one. Now Tribe 24 sitting at number 3 in the country, have moved ahead of Florida, who is dealing with some decommitments, some major decommitments over the last, 48, 72 hours. Have had 3 or 4 blue chip prospects back off their pledges. And now you got Florida State sitting with one of the top recruiting classes in the country, still looking at a couple final pieces to the puzzle. But I mean, man, it's been impressive, not only in the defensive backfield, but just the entirety of this recruiting cycle for Florida State, doing some real work at the prep level. And we're seeing that message from Mike Norvell finally pay off.
Continuing to cook, man. And I think, seeing all those recruits too on the sideline and pregame, getting a win against the rival, definitely one that's like Miami, where you're really competing heavily in that recruiting battle down south, D-Lou. Those kind of things are huge, and it just creates just easy momentum for you as you're going into the latter half of a strong postseason. And just hearing from some of the recruits too after the game, a lot of praise for this staff and what they're continuing to do, and a lot of recruits too saying that Florida State's building something special. But I think they've kind of gotten to that point where they built something special, like Mike Norvell. He won't say it, but there's bigger goals ahead, and they take it week by week. But I think Florida State's at that spot now where they've got a rhythm going, and it's a wheel that's churning. And on the recruiting side of things, if you mix that in with transfer, they found a really good recipe for success.
And I really think they're at the point where, you're probably going to be able to take more high school prospects than you were the last couple of years. They were filling in some of those holes with transfers. And, we've seen how this roster has transitioned over time. Now you're looking at bringing in a full class of high school prospects, I believe sitting at 23 verbal commitments as of right now in this 2024 class. And probably going to get to 25, 26, I would imagine, depending on how things continue to shake out over the next couple of weeks. We mentioned it a couple weeks or months ago, but now there's no signing limit in these classes. Schools can bring in as many high school prospects, as many transfer portal players as they want, as long as they can fit it into that 85-man scholarship limit. So, it could get very interesting for Florida State, depending on who ends up leaving the roster after the season and just how many spots they have to add guys.
Speaking of some other stuff, though, we were talking about it in the production meeting just for a second, but there's been some college football moves. It's this time of year where some coaches aren't performing to the ability of the program's liking. Athletic directors moving on from some people that have been around at their jobs, and it might be time to say goodbye. And this time it's going to be former Florida State head coach Jimbo Fisher. He has been fired officially from Texas A&M. Crazy note here. Jimbo Fisher is going to be making $26,000 a day until 2031. That's roughly $1,083 an hour. About $1,100 an hour. So money-wise, Jimbo's going to be fine, but integrity and, as we know, ego-wise, it's going to be hurting quite a bit. But what are y'all's thoughts on Jimbo Fisher? Obviously, moving on, leaving Florida State in a pretty brutal spot, and a lot of former players that we've had come on here discuss that with us and give their thoughts, but didn't leave in a great way. Won a lot of things from the admin, and boom, out of here and go takes a big time contract with Texas A&M, absurd amount of money, and then isn't able to perform and was bringing in a lot of high tier recruits, but not being able to develop on the field and get wins.
My thoughts. I'm hoping that we can make an addendum to my contract, and you can say that if I get fired, I get $75 million guaranteed.
Wow.
Let me know if you're interested in that agreement. I'll fax it over to you. But
yeah,
I don't feel bad for Jimbo at all, because the guy can never walk out of his front door again. And he's made generational wealth for himself, his kid, his kid's kid, his kid's kid's kid. The list goes on for a while. But yeah, it definitely didn't work out how he was thinking at Texas A&M. I can't say that I felt really bad to see the downfall in College Station. It's even funnier that it comes after a blowout win over Mississippi State, and former FSU quarterback commit Chris Parson getting his first start over there. So a funny weekend for sure. Jimbo Fisher, I don't know. I don't know where it goes from here. I kind of feel like he's going to end up taking a year off, but I could also see him ending up maybe somewhere like West Virginia if that job ends up coming open. So we'll see where it goes. But Florida State, I believe Mike Norvell, more 10-win seasons at FSU than Jimbo Fisher was able to accrue at Texas A&M. And, what are they going to do with that trophy now?
Throw it in the trash.
Melt it down for, save a little bit of money on the buyout?
Maybe.
Yeah, a little bit. Just do a little small dent to it. Scratch.
It has to be the only time in college football history that both coaches are fired following the game, right? Because Mississippi State's coach was also fired this week. Kind of a funny situation, if you ask me. It was interesting to hear the rationale behind the firing now, just from stuff I've heard on podcasts and boards and whatever. Just Texas A&M didn't want to give Jimbo that chance to go out and beat an LSU at the end of the season, and then they can rationalize, oh, we can keep him around, maybe he can get us back. It's interesting that they're just ripping the Band-Aid off now and said, yeah, let's pay him the $77 million just to get out of here. It's certainly a move, certainly showing how deep their pockets go. Not only to buy him out, but they're going to have to buy a staff out after the season. They're going to have to buy someone else's contract out to get him away from whatever school he's at currently. I mean, they're going to be $100+ million in.
You're looking at like 150, I think. I mean,
I'm just talking about paying for this year, not the entire life of the next coach's contract. They're looking at paying $100 to $110 million for one coach in one off season. It's frankly absurd to me. It just does not make sense in my head. But frankly, it's Jimbo's own doing. He couldn't adapt to the way college football was going. He was too stuck in his own ways. He kept calling his own plays for the offense. He couldn't hand the reins to someone else. And he's too loyal to his own guys. He couldn't make the tough decisions on staff with the roster. It's really Jimbo's own doing, and maybe he learns from that at his next stop, whatever it is. Personally, I'm going into retirement with 77 Nems in the bank and living a happy life.
Yeah, I mean, what an epic buyout. It's fully guaranteed. So even if he gets a job somewhere else, it doesn't help pay off any of the buyout.
And it gets more absurd than that because of how much money is due to him, like up front. I got to pull it out because
I think it was like 20-something mil, some wild number, and then
23.
Another couple mil 60 days after that.
Yeah.
I do not feel bad for him. I would feel bad for anyone watching this show if they got fired. Jimbo, not at all. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So in the first 60
fire
days,
me tonight, Logan. Fire me right now.
I don't have 75 M's to give you though, brother.
in the first 60 days, they owe him $19.3 million. 60 days after that, they owe him another $7.2 million, which starts the first of 8 annual payments of $7 million.
Yeah, I'm calling it a day. We're chilling. I might not even be in America for a
I'm
couple years.
I'm going back to my ranch in West Virginia, and I'm chilling. No one's ever going to hear from me again.
You're going to be at every country concert though, like you will be.
I would be. I'm talking about if I'm Jimbo, I'm going back to my ranch in West Virginia. Nobody's going to hear from me ever again.
Yeah, I'm going to say too. Maybe one thing that he just didn't have though at Texas A&M was Jameis Winston or 22 NFL drafted offensive and defensive players that ended up going after their time at Florida State. Maybe that ended up doing it. But
yeah, there was a list of quarterbacks that came after Jameis under Jimbo during the rest of his time at FSU and since he's been at Texas A&M, and it was not pretty. I mean, wow.
Yeah, I'm going to share this real quick too, looking at some of the this is so much fun to do. But these are
who's that on there?
Mike. Who that is?
Mike Norvell? Mike, how do you say that?
Mike Norvell.
Whoa.
Let's tied with Mike Elko there for the favorite to go to College Station. What are y'all's thoughts on that?
How is Dabo not listed? Because if we're just going off of what coaches have said this week, Norvell's absolutely flat out denied it. Dan Lanning's absolutely flat out denied it. And there was someone else too. I had his name and then I lost it. Oh, Dion. Dion said, I pay taxes here. I'm good. Whereas when Dabo was asked about it, he's like, must be November. Like he didn't say no or anything. He just kind of just brushed it off. Like,
see, like Dion,
that's interesting.
The media there. I mean, if I'm a media member in Colorado, I'm driving the traffic. Just knowing off of our network, our network, the number one site in college football is our Colorado site. So I'm just driving it. I'm eating it up. I'm asking Dion. I mean, they do ask Dion the silliest things, but it does drive traffic. But any kind of odds things like this, you've got Lane Kiffin at 5-1, Dan Lanning 6-1, Mike Elko 7-1, also with Mike Norvell at 7-1, and then you've got UTSA's with Jeff Traylor at 10-1. James Franklin 12-1. But yeah, Dabo's not on this list, but Deion Sanders 20-1. And then down at the very bottom here, Urban Meyer 20-1. And Bill Belichick 50-1, baby. He's going to go from leaving the Patriots. He's heading over to Texas A&M. He wants to stress out even more.
It's got to be really fun to work for these gambling companies. You just think of names and just throw them in, and you're like, yeah, 7-1 works. Why not?
Yeah.
To me, the names that make the most sense are Mike Elko. Obviously, he's a defensive coordinator there, and he's a fantastic coach. He's done more with less than arguably any coach in the country at Duke so far. Jeff Traylor knows Texas as much as anybody, and he's got UTSA as good as he could possibly get them. Cliff Kingsbury, maybe he's been out of college for a year. I could see him coming back. And then Lance Leipold, however you say it, at Kansas, he's done as good of a job as anybody has done there. I can see him fitting into Texas A&M pretty seamlessly.
I just don't think that they fired Jimbo and spent all that money to hire Jeff Traylor, and I don't mean that.
Trust me, I agree. I'm just saying that would be the best fit. Would be Elko, Traylor, and Leipold, in my opinion.
I think you're looking for a big splash type guy here.
Oh, I'm sure they've already called Dan Lanning's agent and said, "How does 8 years, $120 million sound?"
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe even Kalen DeBoer from Washington. I mean,
it'd be hilarious.
Definitely need some recruiting.
Honestly, Lane Kiffin would be the funniest one, though. I would die of laughter.
Jonathan Smith from Oregon State would be a pretty good hire. I don't know if it's quite a splash hire, but what he's done in Corvallis, I mean, I think it speaks for itself. Not many people, well, just about no one has been able to do what he's been able to do there.
Yeah, I think with James Franklin is always put into every coaching search, no matter what, who it is, where it could be. No matter what, James Franklin's always there, but you're not really going anywhere, James Franklin. I think we all can agree here that he's hit his limit. There's not going to go. He's not making that college football playoff unless something horrific happens.
I mean,
now we have a 12 team. We have a 12 team, but if we're sticking with 4-team playoffs, Ohio State, Michigan, it's going to be tough for James Franklin ever to reach that bar. And even when Jimbo Harbaugh is not on the sideline coaching against him at home at Penn State, he's kind of already hit his. And Dan Campbell from the Detroit Lions isn't going anywhere as well.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe James Franklin talks himself into going, I'm never going to beat Michigan.
Do it.
Like, maybe I'm never going to beat Michigan and Ohio State. Let me just go get paid. And he goes and gets $100 million from Texas A&M for like 6 years or something ridiculous.
That would be so silly on A&M's part.
He'll definitely be in the running because it seems like every coaching job you hear James Franklin, Jimmy Sexton, he does.
He gets it. Oh yeah, he gets a raise every time.
And I'm sure like pretty much everyone on this list, if you look it up, their agent's probably Jimmy Sexton. I mean, that guy.
Except for Norvell. Norvell got rid of him, I think, last year.
And to FSU fans, I was just seeing everywhere on social media just talking about, it's Mike Norvell. Oh my goodness gracious, we got to keep Mike Norvell and everything. But just keep in mind who your AD is now. Things have changed a little bit in administration at Florida State, and I would believe in your AD with Michael Alford, and I would be pretty sure that he's got things handled there on that side of things with how Florida State has turned things around with the amount of horrific culture locker room that Norvell had to work with immediately once arriving in Tallahassee. So yeah, Alford, just trust Alford. That's what needs to be tweeted more often. Let's jump into this game real quick. Not going to spend a whole ton of time on it. There's no reason to whatsoever. We're not even going to jump into practice observations. We don't need Dustin to tell us that the guys are energized. Pretty rainy though. Pretty rainy week and nasty week though in Tallahassee. Same here too in St. Pete. But anything worth noting at least from practice? D-Lou, saw Kentron Poitier and I saw that you mentioned him. But anything really worth mentioning before we talk a little bit about this North Alabama matchup?
Not a ton. I would say, it's a good sign for Florida State to see Kentron Poitier continuing to make progress. Had a really good day on Tuesday where, he was just making catch after catch, no matter the period. Team drills, 1-on-1, 7-on-7. KP was constantly getting into the action, had some really tough catches there on the sideline a couple of times. So, I think with him, being a breakout player that we saw in the spring and now being set back by this injury the last couple of months, it's huge for him just to continue making progress, and hopefully he can begin to assert himself, because if Florida State gets a 100% Kentron Poitier out there alongside Johnny Wilson and Keon as they get back into form, and we're seeing Ja'Kai start to find a rhythm. Hopefully Dustin Hill is able to get back to 100% after suffering that leg injury a couple of weeks ago, but he's been getting back into the lineup as well. And Deuce Spann and Hakeem Williams were dressed on Saturday. So it seems like this Florida State receiving corps is starting to get back closer to full health. And honestly, it's coming at a good time with Florida State getting to the tail end of the regular season. We have seen some injuries along the offensive line and guys playing at less than 100%. So it'll be huge if they're able to lean on that passing game in big moments.
It would be good. It would be nice to have him there and fully 100%. That's one thing that, we saw in the Miami game, kind of had that big drop there. Not used to seeing Kentron do that whenever he's gone through camps. He's been a stellar player, but Kentron finding that groove with also Ja'Kai Douglas, who has obviously found his, would be nice to end off this regular season going into hopefully a potential deep postseason run. All right, gentlemen, we got Florida State versus North Alabama, kickoff at 6:30. This will be senior day. We were just going through the senior list on during our production meeting. I think y'all have got it loaded. I can't load it worth a damn with how many tabs I've got open. But obviously your big names with Jordan Travis being one of those, Fabian Lovett being in there as well, Kalen DeLoach, who has had a massive season for the Seminoles. It's highlighted by a lot of players on this team that have stuck around and has helped build this program back to what Florida State is supposed to be. And Mike Norvell giving a lot of praise to them and Monday's press conference, and just specifically talking about Jordan Travis and what he was able to do transferring from Louisville. I think a lot of FSU fans kind of forget, or it doesn't come to mind that he was a transfer. He transferred over from Louisville and was not really ever expected to be a starter at Florida State, and ends up getting an opportunity and takes full advantage of it at some point too, was opting to maybe potentially stop football, go play wide receiver position if things needed to change, but he stuck with it. And, through Kenny Dillingham, Tony Tokars, and also to Mike Norvell sticking at that quarterback position and allowing himself to develop, has turned into a Heisman candidate and leading a team to a potential college football playoff berth in his final season. And that's Jordan Travis's career right there, gentlemen.
Should I read
off?
It
right there.
Yeah, I was
read off like the whole list, or
yeah, give us a list so then people, whenever they're in the stands, they can be ready. Because I would suggest a lot of FSU fans get in Doak Campbell Stadium earlier than usual to applaud some of these players that are going to be walking out there.
So only 16 seniors on the roster this year for Florida State. Defensive lineman Fabian Lovett, defensive back Akeem Dent, linebacker Kalen DeLoach, defensive lineman Dennis Briggs, defensive back Jarian Jones, defensive back Renardo Green, quarterback Jordan Travis, linebacker Tatum Bethune, defensive back Dwayne Wells Jr., defensive back Don Jaltine, long snapper James Rosenberry,
the legend,
defensive lineman Braden Fisk, defensive lineman Bless Harris, or offensive lineman Casey Roddick, offensive lineman Dimitri Emanuel, defensive lineman Dylan Brown, and kicker Tyler Keltner.
Man, oh man, it's a pretty lengthy list there, but
not really.
I think
not as much lengthy
for
as
some names.
Impactful. Like there's a lot of impact guys on that list. Like that last year's senior list was. I don't want to disrespect those guys. Just wasn't as strong. We'll just leave it at that.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say more, but I'm not going to say more. But yeah, no, definitely more of a star-studded maybe senior list here. I would expect Jay Trav to be the last one walking out there on Saturday.
But yeah, do it in alphabetical order.
I think JT's got to be last. I don't give a damn who. I don't give a damn if he had to like his.
Is he last alphabetically anyways? Yeah, he is. So
no, they got Wells on
Roddick.
here.
Oh, Wells.
What do you mean Roddick, bro?
A, B, C, D, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, U, R. R, U, S. Damn. Wait. No, he'd be before him. Anyways, there's no way Jordan Travis should be like in the mix of a few walk-ons, and then you've got your star quarterback being named on there. Make sure he's last. Let's do it right. Let's don't be silly with it. Get JT out there last. Get his ovation from the crowd, which I think is going to be a potential another sellout. I think there's only just a few hundred tickets left. And
yeah, they announced earlier it was just 300 left. So I imagine by kickoff it'll be sold out, but we'll see.
Yeah, it should be. Yep. I mean, home finale. A lot of these guys that you'll never see play in Doak again that have been really impactful for Florida State. You've got the 2013 national championship team being recognized. 10-year anniversary. We haven't got a list yet for all of the attendees. Should have one later in the week, but it sounds like they're.
Which I was just about to ask. How would we feel about Jimbo coming back for this?
No. I'm sorry. I think Florida State would rather let Willie come back through the door than Jimbo.
Ooh, I don't know about that one.
Woo! That's what's funny about it, man.
Team celebration. Anybody?
What are we celebrating?
Yeah, put in the chat. Let's see in the chat. Let's see what the chat says. We got over 100 people in here live with us this evening. Put in the chat. Who would you rather see come back if it were to happen? You got to pick one: Willie Taggart or Jimbo Fisher. I'd be interested to see the take here.
Obviously, Jimbo left Tallahassee in an ugly way, but he still won a national title. Like at the end of the day, that matters.
Whoa, I did not mean to click that, but hey, there it is.
And hot take, Jimbo wasn't wrong about anything he said. He just went about it the wrong way. There's a reason that since he's left, Florida State's finally gotten that the football only facilities, renovating all the facilities. They're renovating Doak. There's a reason all of this is happening.
Terrell says on YouTube, Willie, so we can start swag surfing, which they have been playing that a few times at Doak. I've heard it. So
I think we just make Willie honorary 2013 FSU coach in the record books.
Please, no.
He's too busy. Willie's too busy with the Baltimore Ravens, though, coaching the running back room. So he might not be able to make it, sadly, which sucks. But
it does suck.
But also, Willie does not need to be back here anyways. I don't even know why we're even discussing it.
You brought it up.
It's North Alabama week, so we're just trying to just shoot the shit here at this point. But anything not to have to preview this game. But yeah, gonna be fun here. Let's go look at North Alabama, the Lions, and their schedule. They're 3-7, 8th in the UAC. I think this is one of their first. I'll have to look at the stat here. I'll bring it up in a minute, but I don't want to get it wrong. But I think Kurt Weiler from the Osceola out that Florida State is going to be their first opponent, Power 5 opponent since 1950 something.
59, I think.
Somewhere around there.
Long time. I don't know.
Long damn time ago.
So long story short, they're getting smoked.
Yeah, they're gonna get their, keep it PG, but they're gonna get their effing rocked in. But
it's not really PG, I would say. But
I
fun
tried
fact
to
about the Lions, I was doing a lot of football research, obviously, but they've got a lion on their campus, apparently. Which
who?
North Alabama. Yep. North Alabama Lions. They've got a live lion mascot.
Ooh. Do we know if it's traveling? Do we know if it's going to be traveling to Doak?
I can't imagine they'd want a lion in the same building as a horse, but that's just me.
I'm there for the content, though. He's
that's
Leo
the content I
III.
want to see.
He's Leo III, and he was born on November 8th of 2002. He lives in the George H. Carroll lion habitat, and it's a tradition of over 40 years.
Wow.
So this is, do you guys want to see Theo or Leo? Do y'all want to see him?
Yeah.
It'll be the most of North Alabama I've seen all week.
It's a big line. There's no way this thing's coming into Doak for sure, but it would be a phenomenal experience. But here's a good look at our guy right here, Leo the Third. That's a big boy. That is a big lion. That is no joke.
It looks like a lion.
Look at him crossing he's kind of formal with it, though. Got a beautiful mane. I went to LSU, and I went to their stadium there, and this thing is way bigger than their tiger. I'll say that.
Lions are generally bigger than tigers, so that would make sense.
You were really good with Animal Planet, aren't you?
Really.
But yeah, maybe Jordan Travis will
feed it a fan before each game.
A fan? Does North Alabama have fans? I'm sorry.
All
they
right.
probably do.
Jeez, okay. There's no reason to be mean to North Alabama at all.
It's not being mean. It's a genuine question.
I think so. I think they do. But really, this is all about learning about North Alabama. I mean, on the field, there's not going to be much going on. But I would like to see a lot of youngsters from Florida State's side. Hopefully, a lot of Tate Rodemaker. I see a lot of FSU fans now starting the conversation of 2024 in the quarterback room, which we've been talking about throughout this whole entire season. Rodemaker has been really nice going in there and games and is taking care of the ball. We saw what he did against Louisville last year, but would love to see Tate Rodemaker out there and get a lot of playing time along with Brock Glenn too, guys. And of course, a lot of those other true freshmen and some sophomores this upcoming weekend.
I definitely think that we'll see not only Tate Rodemaker, but probably see Brock Glenn out there for the first time since that Southern Miss game. Norvell was asked about him on Tuesday and, mentioned that he missed some time earlier in the year, but it sounds like if he's needed to go into the game, he'll be able to. So it would be exciting to see those two guys both get some game reps. Obviously, Brock hindered by that hand injury, I guess you would call it, that he suffered against Southern Miss, but he was still able to continue getting mental reps in practice. And I mean, it really didn't keep him out for too long. So with Florida State moving into a crucial offseason where you're going to have to figure out, are you going to replace Jordan Travis by going in the transfer portal, or are you going to go with some of these guys that are on the roster? It'd be nice to see them in game action.
I don't have any thoughts. I'm going to be honest.
You don't have any thoughts in your brain at all?
No, just about this game. I just don't have any. It's just one of those. If the backups aren't in by middle of the second quarter, I'm going to be disappointed. It's just one of those games.
Hope FSU's taking it more serious than you guys.
I mean, I fully expect Norvell is taking them way more seriously than I am, sitting on my couch from Charlotte, North Carolina. But
I mean, I still have every couple of weeks I wake up and I hear the Gamecock chant in my ear from Jacksonville State in 2021, and I can see Jarvis Brownlee just missing that tackle.
Yeah, well, luckily Brownlee made it up to us the next year at Louisville.
Hopefully he'll make it up this year.
Yeah.
True.
Well, he's been hurt. I think he's been hurt the last month or so and hasn't played.
Tough. You just hate to see it. Veazey, North Alabama has fans here. Check out the stadium here at Braley Municipal Stadium.
It's crazy they got more fans than Miami does.
That is actually accurate. That's actually accurate.
So have you seen
North Alabama?
A sold-out stadium? Miami would never.
Have you seen Miami's new promotion, buy one, get two free this weekend? It's incredible.
That's better than fucking Dollar Tree.
That's not even a joke. They're actually doing that.
Damn. Double BOGO. BOGO on BOGO.
I think it's just for Coral Gable residents, but still.
Shit. I could go on a whole rant here.
It's a great deal.
But yeah, beautiful stadium here. I'm seeing here, North Alabama Stadium.
The best that North Alabama can provide.
Yeah, looks like they're going to get some renovations here soon. It's looking like so. Going to even increase and maybe attendance. But other than that, let's get to some score predictions. So we can get to some basketball because Veazey said he's got 20 minutes of basketball for us. So
I can if we need to, but
No, I think it's great. All right, let's jump into score predictions. Appreciate everybody hopping on here. If you're still on here on YouTube, hit the like button. Appreciate it. Subscribe so you get notified every time we release a new episode. Score predictions, gentlemen. Florida State versus North Alabama. Jordan Travis's last home game in Doak Campbell Stadium. I think this wraps around back to...
It's D-Lou, and then you have next week.
That's right.
Florida State, big opportunity on the table here to end off the home schedule with a win while getting younger guys playing time in the process. I think, you're going to see the Seminoles come out and treat this opponent the right way, really execute here, especially with this being Jordan Travis and a bunch of other guys, Kalen DeLoach, Fabian Lovett. The list kind of goes on of impactful players on both sides of the ball for Florida State. So I think they'll take this moment really seriously, come out, get the job done, and we'll see a lot of young guys in this one, probably the majority of the second half. I'm going to go Florida State 59, North Alabama 6.
I got Florida State winning this one 51-6 at home for Florida State. And the biggest thing to me is stay healthy, number one. Leave healthy, and then also get a chance to see some of these youngsters get out there on Saturday. But the biggest thing, just try to stay healthy. And I think, too, I would like to see this offensive line get in for a little bit and get the hell out. This offensive line needs to be fully healthy for their matchup against the Gators next weekend. And you could just tell, Maurice Smith is holding on by a thread, it looks like sometimes down there on the field, and would love to get some of these guys out and early in this game and give them some early rest. So that's me, 51-6.
Surprised y'all are going so low on the score. I've got 69-0, and that's a legitimate take. It's a legitimate take. I was going to say 70-6, but I'm like, I don't think they're going to score. So 69-0.
Okay, so they didn't score. That's why you picked 69. Okay, that's your reasoning.
Nice. Also, this prediction did not work out last week, but I'm going to predict that Jordan Travis hits that 100th touchdown. He is at 98 as of now, so he needs 2 touchdowns, and then I think he's going to get one more and one more. So 4 total touchdowns on the day to get to 102 in his career.
I don't even know if he's going to play enough drives to get 4 touchdowns, to be honest with you.
4 straight touchdown drives.
But this may be 21-0 early, and they just get the backups in early.
Yeah, and then too, dude, if Trey Benson keeps on finding these little seams, man, he just might put it away on his own. So I don't know. We'll see. It might end up happening in Doak, or it might happen in Gainesville,
and not even
would
Benson.
Also be fun.
Yeah, not even Benson. Rodney Hill could just go out there and run for 203 touchdowns early on.
His running style, it could. Yeah,
I think they're going to give him some early burn.
He only needs 2 to get to 100.
I get it. He'll get his 100 this game. It's the perfect time to do it on senior day. Let him get his 2, then let Tate and the backups go do their thing.
Hey, you'll have the piece in drafts though, right, D'Lo? Ready to go?
Probably
had it ready for a week.
Got it ready in my brain.
Robert could, yeah. Robert, if you're listening, highly doubt it.
He's not.
He should be enjoying college.
He's got to take this internship more seriously. We're gonna have to have a
talk. Up, Robert.
After you had him out there for damn recruiting all day, poor kid.
Oh, I'm sure
for 18 hours.
I'm sure he hates his life. That was absolutely miserable. And then it just hurts. Like it's like getting stabbed in the heart because you're waiting out there for Jeremiah Smith and you're waiting out there for David Sanders. So the number 1 recruit in the 25 class and number 1 recruit in the 24 class, and you watch them both just drive off. You're like, oh, bye.
Yep. And you're like looking at Robert like, isn't this fun? Don't you want to come back and
I'm like, Robert,
for another year?
I'm like, Robert, today's a good lesson. Sometimes you just take the L. Actually, most of the time you just take the L.
Yeah.
And that's recruiting.
100%. All right, let's finish off this show with some basketball updates from Veazey. Like you were saying earlier, he's fully bought in after beating Kennesaw State and Central Michigan, fully bought. That's over. Florida State to the ACC. tournament as being one of the top seeds, and also to March Madness deep run. Get ready. Here we go. Leonard Hamilton's back.
Florida State was losing these games last year, and it wasn't even particularly close to Stetson, Troy, Siena. Like, they were getting beat by these teams. Kennesaw State's not a bad mid-major. Obviously, they lost a lot from what they were last year when they were in the NCAA tournament, won a bunch of games, but they still have pieces. Simeon Cottle's a good scorer. They still had Terrell Burden, who was all-A son. They've got some good pieces, and to hold them to, 18% from three, really Florida State's three-point defense in both of these first two games has been pretty impressive, and it's easily the story of the defense for me. Last year, they were one of the worst defenses in college basketball, giving up the three, I think, at 38%. Let me fact check that real quick. 37.6%. We'll round up. And the fact that they've been holding these teams to 18%, to me, pretty impressive. I get it's not going to be your high end talent. Central Michigan's the worst team in the MAC. Kennesaw State's a good team in their conference, but they're not good in comparison to the rest of Florida State's schedule. But Florida State actually looks like a competent basketball team. They're moving the basketball. They're getting an assist on 2/3 of their field goals made, which is an incredible percentage. They're guarding the three well. They're not giving up second chance points, even though they've been giving up offensive rebounds. They've been doing a good job of limiting teams from getting those second chance points. And they're just causing havoc defensively. I think they've forced 37 turnovers in 2 games, or 38, something crazy like that. It's like Leonard Hamilton wants to play. They're playing with depth. They're playing together. It's never just one person's night. I think last game against Central Michigan, there were 6 players in double figures, and no one played more than 26 minutes, I want to say. It's how Florida State wants to play, and if they keep playing this way once Jalen Gainey's back in the rotation in a couple weeks, this could legitimately be a good basketball team, and we'll find that out Friday night against Florida, which should be a fun test.
It's been a fun start for Florida State. I mean, you're talking about a 56-point margin of victory in these first 2 games. And like you kind of said, Austin, I mean, these were the games that Florida State was losing in, frankly, embarrassing fashion a season ago. I thought the game against Kennesaw State was going to be kind of a good barometer, of what we were going to see from Florida State earlier in the season. I thought it was probably going to be pretty close, maybe a single-digit outcome in one of the team's favor. So to see Florida State go out there and, I mean, just run all over Kennesaw State. I mean, it was a blowout in the first half, and a lot of that game in the second half was garbage time. And, I mean, the game against Central Michigan, pretty much all of it was garbage time. Florida State is just going out there and getting after it. And I think you can see Jameer Watkins and Nickelberry really assimilating well with the team, along with, obviously Darren Green Jr. coming out really hot. And I really like what I've seen so far. I like to see him get some more playing time moving forward. Taylor Bol-Bowen seems like he has a ton of potential as a big man for Florida State. 6'10", but his ability to dribble and then just also his ability to move. He's really fluid for being that tall. Top 100 recruit coming in, true freshman. He's going to be a nice piece as he continues to get into the system.
I tweeted Monday early afternoon that I'm going to be doing like my 3 favorite clips from the game before on the next game day. One of my favorite clips was Taylor Bol-Bowen's really his first defensive possession. Simeon Cottle, who's this 6'1" lightning quick guard for Kennesaw State, sees this 6'10" slender man out there and goes, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna take him off the dribble. I'll be fine." And Bol-Bowen completely shuts him down, forces him into a tough step back, and Bol-Bowen recovers and contests the shot beautifully. It was as good as you could possibly hope for someone of his size, and he's going to be a really, really unique piece moving forward for Leonard Hamilton. And he's probably only going to play more as we get into ACC play, and you're playing the UNCs that have Armando Bacon and the Dukes that have Kyle Filipowski. You're going to need long, rangy defenders, and that's what Bol-Bowen is. I've really loved what Jameer Watkins has done. He didn't really score much against Kennesaw State, just 2 points, but he led the team in assists and rebounds that night. And then his stat line against Central Michigan looked like something out of a video game. 19 points, 6 rebounds, 4 steals, and he only played 18 minutes. That's as efficient as you could possibly be. I'm loving what this team's doing defensively. They do absolutely still need to clean stuff up. They're far from a perfect team, but they're worlds better than they were last year. They've got to be better defending straight line drives. They got to be better on the defensive glass, which honestly, until Jalen Gainey comes back, I don't know that's really going to be fixed. And then they got to be better about defending without fouling. They were great about it in the first half against Kennesaw State. Since then, it's been kind of tough. I want to say Kennesaw State shot 25 free throws, and then Central Michigan shot 31 or something crazy like that. That's got to be a little bit better. Some of that's officiating wise, because the first 2 games they've been hosed with Jamie Lucky and Roger Ayers in the first game. Then the second game you have Teddy Valentine, the worst possible combination you could start off with to start a season for officiating. Hopefully that gets a little bit better as they move forward. It's going to be big in this Florida game, who, while they've been bad shooting free throws, they've been great about actually getting to the free throw line. 30-plus free throws twice through 3 games, but they're only making them at about a 62% clip currently. I think if Florida State can keep them off the free throw line, keep the game moving, it only works in Florida State's favor.
It's going to be a huge test for FSU on the road, and with a team that still has a lot of new pieces that they're kind of assimilating. It's been encouraging to see what they've done against Kennesaw State and Central Michigan, but I think Florida will give us a true feeling of where this team's going to continue to go after this game. And, it'll be nice to see if they can step up on the road in a tough environment over there.
It's a real barometer game. Florida hasn't been the best to start the season. They lost to Virginia here in Charlotte last week. It was a weird game. Virginia was up double digits late in the second half and then just went completely cold offensively. Ended up going down to the wire. Florida's guard Walter Clayton Jr., who's a transfer from Iona, turned it over 3 times in the final minute, including twice in the last 15 seconds. I think Florida State's going to be able to take advantage of those turnovers. Florida hasn't been great defending the 3. I mentioned it in our production medium. Florida A&M came into their game Tuesday night, 5 of 27 from 3, and they hit 5 of 13 from 3 against Florida alone. So you're going to get those open threes against Florida. As long as you can keep them off the free throw line, and you can keep them from getting second chance points, and you can keep them from getting easy baskets in transition, because that's really where their offense relies around. Florida just has so many new pieces that they're still trying to get figured out that it's going to look ugly for them. They have 8 new players on this team. It would have been 9 if someone didn't leave the team a couple weeks ago. They're still figuring a bunch of things out. Their half-court offense is really muddy, really boggled up. And arguably their best player, Zion Poland's been suspended the first 3 games of the season. He'll be back Friday night. They're going to have to find a way to integrate him. There's a lot of moving pieces, but I'm really, really looking forward to this game. I think Florida State stands a good chance, which is something I did not expect to be saying 2 weeks ago.
Be huge if Darren Green Jr. and Watkins and Nickelberry can come out and have another good game from 3, really stretch that Gator defense.
I think they'll get that chance. They were good with what game was I watching? I want to say it was the Florida A&M has one good shooter, and they were good about getting up in his face and not letting him shoot. But it was everybody else where they were just letting them get the free looks from 3. Florida over helps a lot. They think they're going to get those easy steals, and they get beat back door, or they'll help in the corner too fast in the post when they're 1 pass away, and it's just a wide open 3 in the corner. They do that way more than you expect for a defense that's as good as they are. I think they were top 30 in defensive efficiency last year, and for them to be giving up these kind of looks from 3 is a little bit surprising.
Do they still have the tall white guy?
Colin Castleton, no. He's actually with the Lakers right now, I believe. But they do have 2 of his clones. Michael Handlington, I think's how you say it. Transfer from Marshall. Kind of in that same vein. He's just not as creative offensively, but he's a great shot blocker, great offensive rebounder, and he kind of just cleans up things on the offensive end with dunks, tip backs, that kind of stuff. But he's showing potential that he can hit the 3 this year. And then they have a freshman from Australia, Alex Condon. Kind of that same vein, a little bit shorter. He's 6'11" compared to Handleton's 7'1". But that same kind of vein of player, block shots, rebounds, can stretch and hit the 3. So they have a Castleton clone, but they're not as annoying as Castleton. What they do have is Riley Kugel, who was all SEC preseason first team. Really was on a hot stretch to end last year. 17 points per game in the last 10 games for Florida. He's been off to a little bit of an ugly start this year. Florida A&M and Virginia were really physical with him and you could tell his impact in his play. He's a very finesse, flashy player, and if he's not getting those, he's taking out his rhythm quickly, but he's still very talented.
Looking forward to this one on Friday. Going to be watching it. So Florida State facing off against the Gators on Friday evening at 7 o'clock. It's going to be on ESPN as well. So make sure everyone's tuned into that. Man, if Florida State gets that win, I think you might have some Florida State non-bandwagon fans, or the bandwagon fans may make a return over and start giving them some attention.
Need someone, because the Tucker Center attendance those first 2 games, pathetic, man.
It wasn't terrible against Kennesaw.
Who wasn't there?
It wasn't terrible against Kennesaw, but that's because the Miami game was the next day. The Central Michigan crowd was pretty pathetic.
I got it figured out now. I'm like a weatherman. You can't run from me. Maybe with Dustin will be there Friday. Maybe you think you'll go over there to the Tuck on Friday?
Well, considering the games,
oh, never mind.
They don't play another home game until the Wednesday before the ACC championship, and it's at like 9:15 p.m.
Oh yeah, the game against Georgia on the 29th. Because next week's the Sunshine Slam, which is a tournament in Daytona Beach, and then it's the Georgia game the week after.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, got some fun stuff here. We'll be watching that on Friday night as Florida State travels over to Gainesville and faces off against the Gators. But yeah, I think that's going to wrap up this week's episode. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us this evening as we jump through quite a bit of stuff throughout this show. But as always, you can listen to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify. If you're on YouTube right now, hit that like button, hit subscribe so you get notified every time we release a new episode. We'll be here live on Saturday evening, giving a quick instant reaction to Florida State's hopeful win. Just me and Veazey, hopeful win against North Alabama and Theo, the third Lion. But yeah, that's going to do it. We'll see y'all on Saturday evening. And after that, it's on to Gator Week, man. It's quick. Go from Miami, get a little break, and then you're off to the Gators. So good, fun stretch of shows for us as we head into postseason play. Everybody, enjoy the rest of y'all's week. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you guys Saturday night. Peace.
Mama told me not to say a word. 17.5, same color t-shirt. Mama told me not to say a word. 17.5, same color t-shirt. Mama told me not to say a word. 17.5, same color t-shirt. Mama told me not to say a word. 17